So fast forward 10 months, we got to come back. We're in a new building, a lot of new fans. A lot of the old fans had fallen off.
Right.
We have to rebuild our audience now. I'm again looked towards as one of the guys to help rebuild this audience. But now on the other side of the ball. Now I'm a bad guy.
Right.
Now I have pent-up anger and frustration that I'm going to get out. I'm going to get off my chest. I'm going to dump all my problems all out on them. I'm going to be this bad guy. Well, it worked good. It was working great for about a year and a half. They were booing me out of the building. I thought, this is working just fine. But then almost the exact opposite effect started to happen. I would hear a few cheers here and there. And then a few more. I'm like, what is going on? I couldn't have been any more destructive. I am hitting women in a battle royal. I beat up cameramen. We actually went over the rail at one point and hit a fan. I had someone kicked out of the building. And they're still starting to cheer. I'm like, what else can I do? I would literally considered bringing a tub of water to begin drowning puppies. Knowing me, I would drown. Knowing the luck I have here, I would drown the first one, pick it up, show it to the audience, slam it down on the mat. There would be a long pause, and then, yeah! Okay, so this puppy just died for nothing. That seemed like where things were going. So, as momentum's building for me as a heel, of course, my rivalry was with John McChesney. He was the guy I screwed out of the title. We'd build a few matches, we would let it go for a while. We would build a few more matches, let it go for a while. Now it's time to have this rivalry with him and me culminated. We're finally going to finish it. We'll finish this chapter of it. How does it start? One more run as PWR heavyweight champion. So I win the PWR heavyweight title to a standing ovation. And I thought, all right, this is already in the toilet. This isn't going to work. Right. How the hell are they going to get... They can't be behind both of us. Right. Well, we started the rivalry again, and it's probably 70-30 for him. Right. The second match, it's probably 60-40 for him. The third match, now it's 50-50. We build into the last match of this program, and now it's probably 60-40 in my favor. Right. In his hometown. Right. I couldn't believe what was going on. What I think was going on was the appreciation for the rivalry is what they were seeing. And it culminated in the 60-minute Iron Man match. And since this is a shoot, I'll tell you what really happened. This Iron Man match is getting ready to happen, and Jamie Scott pulls us into the back, and he looks at me and John, and he says, we want to do an Iron Man match. We want to do it 3 days after Christmas. Perfect Jamie Scott impersonation, by the way. We want to do it 3 days after Christmas. After we've already done a show 2 weeks before this, and we're going to fill the building with an Iron Man match with you two. I went, yeah, good luck. Nobody's showing up to that. 60 minutes, you're advertising one match. 60 minutes they're going to sit and watch me and him, a guy they've seen wrestle 30 times already. Is that what you're going to do? And, well, do you guys want to do 30 minutes or do you guys want to do 60 minutes? John looks at me and goes, we got to do 60. Dude, come on, we got to do 60. And I'm like, we just got done with a 20-minute match, and I was sucking. I'm still holding on to my knee pads in the back. I couldn't see straight. The room was fuzzy and spinning. I'm like, you want 60? You know what? Fine. In a haste of a lack of oxygen to the brain moment, I said, all right, 60 minutes, we'll do it. Well, then now it dips back to Jimmy the Hippie, because I trained with Jimmy, I ride with Jimmy. We did a lot of talking on the phone, coming from the same training school, like I said, and subscribing to the same theory of the business. I wanted to figure out, like, 60 minutes was far more than I've ever done. It was far more than John had ever done, and it was more than we've done together. So we sat and we discussed a few scenarios, Jimmy and I, of how we can keep an audience entertained for 60 minutes. And I can remember sitting in a hotel room in Erie the night before, talking to Jimmy about it, and we are less than 24 hours away from what could be a great moment for PWR or a huge disaster for PWR. to try to sell a wrestling show 3 days after Christmas and advertise one match and tell their audience you're going to sit through 60 minutes. I began to look through the curtain at about 6 o'clock thinking, nobody's showing up to this. Nobody's coming here for this. Now, I thought the match before that had to be really good for them to show up for that. And I thought we did our job there. I look out through the side curtain at just before bell time. The building's full. We filled the building that night on one match. John wins the title or he leaves. And I thought throughout the matches we told a great story, and that was the one where the story came to a close. If you watch the match back, I was winning 1-0 up till like the last 5 minutes. The last 5 minutes, John hits me with a super kick and I kick out. I suck the air out of the room. People are like, oh, McChesney's going to have to leave forever. He gets a quick roll up, now it's tied. The place is on their feet screaming for the last 3 minutes of this match. With 10 seconds left, John McChesney pins me, wins the title. People go nuts. I'm standing in the ring with the belt, and I'm going to hand it over to him. I stood in the ring for, I want to say, the better part of 3 minutes. Nobody left the building. They wanted to see me hand the title over to John. Well, of course I wasn't just going to hand him the belt. I set it down at his feet. He earned the title that night. He didn't win the title. He earned it that night. And as far as I was concerned, I earned my place on top of PWR with that one match.
You know, and all those things you were talking about, you know, we sit here on the 7th anniversary, the night of the 7th anniversary show, and we look back, and you're talking about moments that PWR fans, like, they idolize these moments. These are stone carved in moments into PWR. Like, these are the biggest moments, some of, would you say?
I'd like to think so anyway. You can look back at a lot of great moments in PWR, and I would like to think that when you look back at some of those moments, my name gets mentioned quite a bit. I would like to think that I'm one of the guys that helped make this place what it is. And I will continue to keep making this place what it is and keep making it better. Winning the PWR heavyweight title, as much as that meant to me, winning the PWR Tag Team Championship was another goal that I had breaking into the wrestling business. I wanted to be a tag team champion. The thing I liked about tag team wrestling was, opposed to singles wrestling where you're kind of feeling the match, I can watch the match actually unfold and take place in front of me. I can watch the story unfold and know where things need to go. I won the first tag team championship with Shane Taylor. We're both bad guys, and again, the building's cheering. I couldn't understand what was going on, why this audience was doing this. Well, come to a point where I was starting to get burnt pretty bad on wrestling. I thought this heel thing had run its course. I just didn't think it was working anymore. I thought it was time for something fresh, something new. I asked PWR for time off. I asked them for a couple months. Hey, I need some time to just relax, recoup, get my bearings, and then we'll start fresh in 3 or 4 months. Request was vehemently denied at the time I had asked for it. Absolutely not. Not going to happen. That's another story in and of itself. Well, it finally does come to a time where I put my foot down a few months later and I said, look, guys, I need this time.
Right.
It's not anything personal. It's like, I like what I'm doing. I like where I'm at. You guys aren't treating me bad. I just need this time for me. And I took the next couple of months off. During that time I'd taken off, I had some time to freshen up, time to relax. I wasn't traveling so much. I wasn't wrestling so much. I got to relax, stay at home, and just think and let wrestling go for a while. And I came back in September of 2013 in the War Games match against Team Asylum with RJ City and Matt Burns, alongside of my arch enemy John McChesney and Kevin Bennett. As a good guy. Now, I didn't know coming through the curtain if the audience was really going to care because I was gone for a while. I come through the curtain, and it was a good feeling to know that they still kind of cared. They blew the roof off the place. They were happy to see me. But I decided in that moment, I am not going to go back, even though they're cheering me, and I'm this good guy. I'm not going to go back to being that smiling thumbs up. Like, this is working for me. This is an extension of my personality. I'm going to hurt people. They enjoy it. Why change the formula?
Right.
I'll keep doing what I do. Well, now time comes for them to approach me about another tag team championship run. But this time it's not with Shane Taylor. It's with Jimmy the Flying Hippie. Now that was something, I can't speak for Jimmy in that aspect, but that was something that I thought, hey, I can really bite into this. Shane Taylor was a really good friend of mine. Shane Taylor and me are very similar in the ring to kind of what we do and how we present ourselves to the audience.
Right.
I touched on earlier how Jimmy the Hippie and I couldn't be any more opposite. He's one end of the spectrum. I'm the whole other end of the spectrum. I thought we would present a dynamic to the audience that was different than what they were used to seeing out of tag teams. I was excited about the opportunity of working with them. Again, because we trained together and we had that same mentality of how the wrestling business should be. We had that same train of thought. We would never talk about connecting parts of the match. They would just happen. I wouldn't ask him what he was doing. He would just do it. He wouldn't ask me what I was doing. I would just do it. But when you put what he did up against what I did, they fit and clicked and connected perfectly. And the audience was right there with us for every step of it. That shows the mentality of the theory that we subscribe to. It works. And it all came from our trainer. And this is something that you just can't create. You just can't create magic like that.
Right.
There's a certain amount of chemistry and a dynamic that him and I have as a tag team that I really enjoy.
Now, do you think both being trained by Cato and both not having that mentality instilled in you, but helping solidify that mentality of the business, do you think that helped in that chemistry you're talking about?
Absolutely. It absolutely did. Because we went to the same training school. We heard the same things. We were brought up the same way. Now, Jimmy's wrestling knowledge his wrestling knowledge library is more vast than just about anybody's that I've ran into. So we would talk on the phone like schoolgirls about wrestling and what we were going to do and how we were going to make things work. Like, we're going to do this with this. Jimmy's like, well, I saw this match and like 1973 and it's that. I'm like, what? Like, where would you stumble upon that? He's somewhat of a historian of the business, more so than just about anybody I know. And we take formulas that have worked for other people, just apply it to what we do today.
Right.
And we make a lot of this work. A lot of what you see go on between the ropes with him and I mean, a lot of that is him. A lot of like the brainchild of how we go about doing things, and the characters, Jimmy the Hippie and Big Time Bill Collier. Like, of course, those two separate characters are us, but the kind of magic of what you see us do, right, a lot of that is his.
Very interesting, and I personally, I found it very interesting that you are a two-time PWR Tag Team Champion as of tonight, as of the 7th anniversary of PWR.
We'll get ready for 3 tonight.
We'll get ready for 3 tonight. Fair enough. But the fact that you are a Tag Team Champion with 2 different partners, I found very intriguing. I personally don't think you see that many places. I don't know. You seem to find it. I don't. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I just find it to be a very admirable thing that you can be a tag team champion. You can be part of a team and with more than one person and get the job done. And have that chemistry with more than one person.
Like I said, the chemistry with Shane Taylor and I was a lot different than it was with me and Jimmy the Hippie. Shane Taylor and I are really good friends in real life. We are a totally different looking team than Jimmy the Hippie and I.
Right.
Shane Taylor, like I said before, Shane Taylor and I kind of present ourselves in the same way.
Right.
We're kind of the same thing. We do it differently, but you're kind of getting the same thing. It's like saying you getting served a T-bone steak or a ribeye steak. It's kind of the same thing.
Right.
With Jimmy the Hippie and I, you want smoked salmon or you want the T-bone steak?
Right.
How do you want this done?
Right.
And a lot of times what you see is Jimmy setting the table. He sets the table with the satin tablecloth. He sets the fine china out, the wine glasses. I'll be in the back like sharpening knives, preparing the meal. He'll serve it.
Right.
There we are. Everybody loves it.
So, Ted, take it away.
Going back to that question, it's been talked about, there's many people in the independent wrestling business that can't get along with anybody. Meanwhile, you've been able to get along with 2 different people to come to Tag Team Championship Gold.
I'd like to think that I get along with just about everybody in the locker room. A lot of the younger guys kind of look up to me. I'm not sure where or how that happened. They, all of a sudden, people are coming to me, hey, can you watch my match? Can you watch my match? I'm like, well, yeah, I guess. What the hell you want me to watch your match for? What am I going to do? So I'll sit and I'll watch it. Well, what'd you think? Before we get started, this is merely my opinion and the way I was trained. And then I would, give advice accordingly. But I'm not sure how that all took place, through time. I certainly wasn't like sitting at the monitor like, when these guys come back behind the curtain, I'm gonna give them an earful. I'm gonna give them my opinion. You wait and see. That's not how that happened.
Right. So we talked about this before the camera started rolling. I kind of showed you the notes that we had made sure we got. You have won the better part of 20 to 25 championships. Is that close? If not more.
I don't know who's counting, but yeah, I would think that's pretty correct. Yeah,
okay.
I've won titles in a lot of places, a few times.
So that leads me to another controversial question, and I ask that you don't take offense to this. I don't believe you will, but okay. I believe this is something that should be addressed that I would like you and only you to answer because you are the only person that can answer it.
Okay.
Talking about winning all these titles and being the success that you are right now today in the indie wrestling scene, do you feel that you have won all these things and achieved all of these things because you're a big guy or because of your ability of wrestling and your knowledge on the business?
I think it's a little bit of everything that you just said. The first thing that gets people's attention when I walk through the door is obviously my size. I'm a little bigger than most indie guys. I'm well put together. I spend a lot of time in the gym making sure that the presentation of what I do, that legit badass character, I have to look like that.
Right.
So I spend a lot of time in the gym to make sure that's what that character looks like when he comes through the curtain.
Right.
So the first thing they see is the way I look. Wow, that's great. This guy looks good. Next thing is, does he move around like a block of wood? Am I hard to move around?
Right.
Well, then they see me move around. I'm like, wow, you're pretty light on your feet. You move around pretty good for a big guy. We like that. And then they see that the matches are sound. They're
right.
psychological. They're everything that they're supposed to be from start to finish. And they're like, wow, this guy isn't bad. And then the people start getting behind it. Like, hey, maybe we can do something with this guy over here. That's kind of how that works. If you're asking me.
Okay, all right. I mean, because I think there are a lot of people, and there's a large stereotype with men your size in this business that they are the powerhouses and that's all they can do. They can knock people down and they can, they're all they're good for is their strength. And I think that's a stereotype that is very misconstrued.
That's precisely why I said earlier I enjoy working with smaller guys better.
Right.
I can showcase more of me being able to get up and down better.
Absolutely.
Now, we've talked for 45 plus minutes about the history of Big Time Bill Collier. I want to know, if you wouldn't mind talking about it, how many more times are we going to see Bill Collier come through that curtain? How much more do you have in you?
That's a really good question. Because I've been at this for a while. We're not as young as we used to be, and we keep getting older. My ultimate goal, of course, is, I don't want to sound selfish, my ultimate goal is to move on to the big stage, move up to WWE, their developmental system, NXT. That's my first and foremost goal. That's what I'm concentrated on as of right now. As far as how much longer I have, as long as I'm still having fun, as long as my body holds up, I'll keep doing this as long as my body holds up and as long as it's fun. And right now my body's holding up just fine. I keep myself in good shape. And I still have a blast doing this. I still get excited to go to shows. It still keeps me up the Friday night before, like a kid before Christmas. I'm like, oh man, Steel Cage Match anniversary show tomorrow night. Dead Wrestling Society, Homegrown Heroes. What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? I'm gonna punch people, pick them up and throw them on the ground, hit things hard. That's what I do. I get excited. I like it.
Absolutely. All right. So, as of right now, not to sound not as a bad thing, but we've gotten to the history lesson. Now I think it's time for us to have some fun.
Let's do that.
All right.
Let's have some fun because we haven't yet.
No, of course not. We haven't yet. All right, so we're going to get into this fun part. First, I want to ask you, I've asked this question to a lot of independent wrestlers that are in this business. What is your Mount Rushmore of wrestling? And by Mount Rushmore of wrestling, I mean like those 4 top iconic faces that got you into loving this so much. We talked about a few earlier.
Ooh, from a performer standpoint, is that what you want to know? Like the 4 guys that I watched, and if I were going to say I'm only going to watch these guys 4 matches. Like, is that where we're at?
Perhaps.
All right. Hold on to your seats for this. Because one of them is going to blow you away. The names I say versus the names I don't. The first one, of course, for me was Undertaker. I liked watching Undertaker's matches because I touched on before, like the mystique, the character. I really like that. I really enjoyed Bret Hart's matches. Because at the time I was watching Bret Hart's matches, I was in high school. I was a technical wrestler. So I really enjoyed that, watching Bret. Later on, the guy that I liked watching was a guy I felt like I was pretty close to size to. He was a little heavier than I was. But Triple H was a guy that I really enjoyed watching his matches because he was close to my size.
Right.
Like, that was going to be as close to... Like, if I were going to be on TV, that's kind of close to where I would have been. Like, height-wise, weight-wise. Right. He would have been real close to that. So I liked watching what Triple H did. And then the last guy for me recently, bear with me, John Cena.
All right.
John Cena. Because John Cena, when you see that guy on Monday Night Raw, you can tell that he eats, sleeps, and breathes this business and that he loves it.
Yeah.
He absolutely, and that radiates off of him in the ring. I like what he stands for. I like the way he presents himself and the way he doesn't waver in the face of a 50-50 crowd split. Sometimes it's 80-20 where they're booing him out of the building and he is still who he is.
Right.
And I admire that. I like that about what I see with John Cena.
Okay, all right. While we have a few minutes left here, I have one little game I'm going to try and play, and then we're going to go into a few quick answered questions. The first thing I want to do is kind of talk about a name association. You know, I will bring up a name of a wrestler. You say the first thing that comes to mind and the smallest description or story that you want to share about that person.
Okay, that sounds good. We can do that.
First person, you talked about him earlier, John McChesney.
John McChesney has a... First thing that comes to mind is magnetic personality in front of the audience. There's something about John that no matter where he is, the audience enjoys watching his stuff. So he has a very magnetic personality.
Okay. You talked earlier about the man that also helped you in this business, J-Rock.
Great mind for the business. Great mind for the business.
And getting out a little bit of the traditional names that you're thinking we're going to ask.
Okay.
I want to hear your opinion of Butterbean.
Butterbean was unbelievably nice to talk to. I couldn't believe that a guy that was this big of a celebrity and a real badass in real life would be as goofy as he was. He was really fun to sit and joke and talk with. I was absolutely ecstatic to sit and talk to him, and it was great. I couldn't believe that this guy was just as down to earth as he was.
Now, I have a list here. We talked about this earlier, but I mean, you have gotten in the ring with the likes of men like Abyss, the Blue Meanie. We said Butterbean. Jimmy Snuka is a man that sticks out to me on this list.
Jimmy Snuka, by the way, quick side note, Abyss was my third match in the business. That's realistic. My third match in the business was with Abyss. It was a 6-man tag, but it was still
Right.
He was still involved. What was the name again?
Jimmy Snuka.
Jimmy Snuka. There we go. Now I'm sorry. Jimmy Snuka. When I was getting ready it was a tag match. It was J-Rock and myself against Aftermath and Jimmy Snuka. I can remember meeting Jimmy Snuka for the first time, getting ready to shake his hand, and he goes, "No, brother, bring me the love." I saw he wanted a hug. Oh man, this guy's awesome. And he had his Hall of Fame ring on, and I was kind of checking that out. And I was really excited about working with Jimmy Snuka. Jimmy Snuka and I were going to start the match off, and Snuka seems kind of out there a little bit. And he's standing in the ring, and I kind of say the first spot to him to remind him he's staring a hole through me, not saying or doing anything, like a penguin. No body language, no nothing. And he's just staring at me like... So I repeated the spot. I pulled the referee over. I'm like, tell him the spot. Referee goes over. He never looked at this referee. Still. I am losing my mind. I'm like, the guy doesn't know. He doesn't remember. I just told him. Now what? I was like, I am panicking. I know it felt like the situation where your kitchen catches on fire is kind of what I was doing. I'm like, oh my God, fire. What do we do? Now the people are starting to come down now.
Right.
It gets to the point where it is almost dead silent in the building. He waits another 10 seconds, and you could hear a pin drop in the building across the street. And I'm like, what are we going to do? And he goes, hoo, 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 hoo. Place goes nuts. We go into the opening spot. He was just saying, settle down, kid. I know how to work.
Right.
Learn how to work. That was my first on-the-job lesson from Jimmy Snuka.
So continuing on this list, we have a short little, you have guys like Shane Douglas on this list, Gangrel, ECW's Kevin Thorne, Coco Beware on this list. Is there anything about Coco Beware that you want to share with anybody?
Coco Beware was really fun to work with because he had Coco Beware had the parrot, and I was really excited to see the old Coco Beware character with the parrot. So that was fun.
All right. Next on the list is a man that's knows his way around this area. Can I say this tri-state, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan area? Rhino.
Ooh, Rhino, I was already at the point now where I am extremely confident in my abilities. By the time I had my match with Rhino, this was in August of 2012, early August 2012 at the Wattsburg Fair. And Rhino had talked to me afterwards, like before the match, we're going over some things, and of course he sees that I'm a bigger guy. He's had neck surgery. He doesn't want me to pick him up.
Right.
And I get that because he doesn't know me from the man on the moon.
Absolutely,
and all he sees is a guy is capable of picking him up. And once I have him up there, capable of having 2 left feet and falling down with him. So he wanted no part of that. And I got that. Well, the match progresses. We have the match. And I thought the match was good. We ended up doing more in the match than I thought we were going to. And a lot of it he called. And when we got into the back, he told me that it was because he felt comfortable with me. He said that I moved around great and he felt comfortable. That's why we were able to do some bigger things and some more things, because he was extremely comfortable with how I was moving in the ring. And he said that at first sight, here it goes back to the first thing he saw was, oh, okay, guy's got great size. Guy has great size. Then it was, well, the guy doesn't move around too bad.
Right.
Then it was, hey, this guy isn't bad. Let's try a superplex from the top rope.
Oh.
Guess where we're at? On the
right.
top rope for a superplex.
All right, and then the last name that I have on my list that I want to talk about is, if you're a super indie wrestling fan, this is probably, man or woman, this is probably one of your crushes, as not homosexual as that's supposed to sound. Chris Hero is a man that you faced very recently.
When was that? Was it May?
I think it was just this past year in
This past
ESW.
May at Empire State in Lockport. It was another example of somebody got to him before I shook his hand and said hello, and told him, hey, the guy you're wrestling, he's a really big guy. He's good. And I kind of went up to him like, hey, how you doing? I'm Bill. Say, hey, how's it going? And we sat and we talked a little bit. And the match was good, but the show was running exceptionally long. So our 8 to 10 minute match was on the shy side of 8. It could have been a lot better than it was, but for what it was, we were both extremely happy with the way it come off.
Oh, good. Okay.
It wasn't a situation where he dictated anything. We kind of went 50-50. And he was extremely happy with the way I moved. I was happy with the way he behaved. Because, again, he's been to some places. He's been signed to WWE. You never know when you're going to run into one of those guys, how they're going to behave.
Right.
And he was really good to me. When we got done with everything, we thought everything was solid. We went out and we had the match. And we were happy with the way everything come off. We wish we'd had a little more time.
Sure.
And that's a match, again, I wouldn't mind having.
Okay. Ted, is there any other names that you want to throw out there at all? Anything that comes to mind?
Oh, I want to hear your opinion about the Patriot.
Which Patriot? There's so many guys that did the Patriot.
Let's do Salvatore Sincere.
Okay, Salvatore Sincere. I actually had a match with Salvatore Sincere. Was last July, and just above Pittsburgh, or just below Pittsburgh, rather, PA. And Salvatore Sincere, Tom Brandy, is a guy that I bumped into quite a bit, but I've never had the privilege of working with. And I thought it was strange because he always talked to me, and he said, hey, he would like to get in the ring with me. And I thought, wow, this guy wants to get in the ring with me. And again, it was because I was a big guy. I could move around. And we're outside. It's the middle of July. It's outdoors. It's 95 degrees. I hit the ring sucking wind. He kept it together, though. He's slightly older than I am, but he kept it together fine. I'm sucking wind, but he was real happy with the way everything was going. And when we got in the back, he complimented me on my footwork and my abilities.
All right, we only have a few minutes left, so before I have two questions that I want to ask you. One being if there are any dream matches that Bill Collier wishes that he could have today, whether it be tag team action, whether it be singles action, what would those be, if any?
There's one match, and I want the camera looking right at me for this, because I am serious when I say this. Jimmy the Hippie and I, this is not a work, this is 100% shoot. Jimmy the Hippie and I would like nothing more than a match with Aaron Draven and John McChesney. And until PWR gives us that match, I will hound them. I will make them tired of hearing about it. So until it happens, I'm going to keep mentioning it. So, before too long, sooner rather than later, Homegrown Heroes and Erie Elite. Make that happen.
All right, and any singles dream match you would have on your mind?
As far as indie opponents go?
Any
opponent. Well, then it's me and John Cena all day.
All right. And now this last question I want to ask you, it pertains to the matches so far. What has been, how you feel, your best match to date that you have enjoyed and has been your best match?
Can I give you a few off the top of my head?
You can give me a few off the top of your head. Just rattle a few off.
Anything that Jimmy the Hippie and I have done, I felt really good about. I felt really good about the Iron Man match with John McChesney because I felt like the story and the build was there. I did a match in ESW, a last man standing match with Blackjack Phoenix that I was extremely happy with. There was one at the very beginning of my career that let me know I could be a next level performer that I had against Calvin McGrath in March of 2008. And then I had a steel cage match with J-Rock at PWR in May of 2009. The steel cage match with J-Rock, I was the most nervous for. But again, J-Rock being the professional he is, made sure everything went the way it was supposed to. that match, as far as like PWR sticks out to me, was the cage match with J-Rock.
All right, and real quick, what match have you had personally the most fun being in? What has been the most fun you've had in a match?
I've had fun in a lot of matches, but matches that I would consider fun aren't necessarily the ones where we're going out and this defies conventional wisdom, because we should always be worrying about the fans. The matches that I have had that we're kind of in on it together in the ring and nobody else is.
Right.
There was a situation where Rocky Reynolds and I went out of our way to try to blow up the referee and make him get down and up from 3 counts over and over and over and
Right.
over, as many times, to the point where we were sucking wind ourselves just to see to it that Dickie Grabler was sure enough, by the 8th or 9th, 10th pinfall in a row, he just stayed on the mat and never got up.
Well, Bill, I appreciate you sitting down with us for however long this has been. We've been sitting here for a while, and
We are definitely editing this down.
the time has flown by.
Or showing it in parts, for sure.
The time has certainly flown by. Bill, I would like to personally thank you for sitting down with us and talking with us.
Thank you, guys, because I'm the first guest you've had.
First
And
one.
Again, just like the first PWR heavyweight champion. That means a lot to me. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely, thank you. This is just the beginning. We'd like to thank Bill Collier for his time and his stories. Make sure you look out for him. He's certainly a talent you want to see in the ring. And tonight, of course, they are facing Crimson and Warchild, the Dead Wrestling Society, in a steel cage match at the 7th anniversary show for PWR for the Tag Team Championships. Just one of the many great matches I see from Bill Collier now and into the future as well.
That is true, Richard. And ladies and gentlemen, I just want to thank you for sticking around and watching this entire interview with big-time Bill Collier. For little Richard Davenport III, my name is the Ted Hollowell. Thank you. Good night.